Perfect. Hello, Elsa, my dear friend. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too, my dear Dorot.
Thank you for joining me, and thank you for taking this invitation.
Yeah.
This is our first time together. I would like to start maybe with a brief introduction,
Mm-hmm.
telling a little bit more about our history, and maybe we can let the conversation flow from that point on. So, everyone, thank you for joining. Elsa is a dear friend of mine from Harvard Business School. Our friendship is actually almost more than a decade old. We are getting more
Yeah,
and more
that's
experience. It's going to be a 10-year reunion coming up soon. And I think we had many occasions to meet, but personally for me, the most important milestone for our friendship is coming from ALD,
Mhm.
Authentic Leader Development course from Harvard Business School. Of course, business school is not very well known by its programming around authentic leadership, but this was an elective course that we attended in the second year,
Second year.
and the primary goal was to really help us to understand ourselves better
Mm-hmm.
and hopefully design better leadership opportunities for ourselves, but also for others. And the part of the course was also a part of the course was bringing a little small discussion groups together. So we were opening up in a more deeper manner. And whatever we are learning from the course, this was more like a safe space that we hold that space for each other while we are shifting through many of the things that maybe we didn't have time to explore before. So, given the essence of the course, I think it's really enabled us to go deeper. It
Mm-hmm.
was literally one of the most authentic classes where we had to do a little bit more value assessment, asking big questions about our lives. So maybe just because of that nature, I felt like we had a deeper connection with that community.
Mm-hmm.
And we stayed in touch. And another reason, personally, for me to honor this friendship is really Elsa is not only brilliant on the intellectual side, she has a beautiful heart. And she's also doing a lot of nonprofit things and quite a lot of things where she can also bring all of her essence, including her heart, mind together and bring more enlightenment into our world. So I think we had quite a lot of common interests too. So that was my way of actually summarizing Elsa, but maybe before jumping into what has changed, like, did I miss anything or would you like to share a little bit more about your side of the reflections?
Um, if you ask me, so I'm like skipping the biographical details about me because I think what will come up
Yeah.
is going to be about the essence of me. So, but if you ask me what I remember, like some key moments in our friendship,
Mm-hmm.
I think it was like it took me back to I was like somehow driving. I At that time I have a Mini Cooper, and I like to like
In
go around.
California.
Yeah, because like the Uber was not a big thing yet. So like somebody who has a car, we're like, oh, let's go like to the city and like have brunch. And so I'm like to do that. So I was doing that. I think we were like went somewhere cool, and then I was driving back. I was dropping you off at like this one drop up area that you can drive into at HBS, Harvard Business School, and it was like in the night. And then I don't even know what exact words you said to me, but you were opening up to me and just say like, "You want to be my friend," and it just like it was like one of the first times I have a friend being so vulnerable. Because like in business school, we're just always like showing off, and like most of the time the understatement is like, "I'm so cool, come hang out with me." But like it's always preceded by like, "Look how cool I am, and now hang out." And you were just sitting there and just say like you have a beautiful connection with me and you just want to continue to be in my life. And I was like didn't know what to respond. I was just like, oh, interesting, somebody say that to me, like, and just this openness. And I don't think I immediately responded by like deepening our friendship. I was a little bit like probably a little bit insecure and unsure. um but then somehow we met again in that class, and it continued to deepen, and then we graduated, and like somehow I would be in New York and I would hang out with you, and like life just keeps bringing us together. It's like this beautiful like weaving. And at some point you were telling me, you were like, do you remember I had this open invitation to be your friend and look what happened? And I was like, it took me a while to get to say yes, but I'm here. And
Well,
so that was like the moment that, like, when you mentioned that, I really remember and appreciate about you.
now that you told the story, I still remember that dinner. Preceding you dropping me off.
Yeah.
Well, universe had its own timing. And
Yeah.
this is indeed one of the lessons that I learned after our graduation, before graduation, or in the last years. We are all prepared to conquer the world and scale this magical businesses and make a
A
huge
bigger
impact
scale.
in the world as if we can do it and we have all the power. And if there's one thing that I have personally learned, universe and nature has its own timing. And although it's valuable for us as leaders or as future shapers to have our own aspirations and to work diligently, there is definitely an universal timing for things to unfold in its own time and space. Maybe that's another reason that things took a little bit time. And I also believe that anything that comes with some sort of authenticity depth requires some investment from everyone involved for it to deserve its space and existence. So here we are. Cheers to our 10-year friendship as well.
Mm.
So another inspiration for this conversation is actually coming up from our recent catch up with Elsa. And in that conversation, we were all reflecting about what has changed in our lives and as female leaders, how our leadership style started a little bit changing and integrating more of that feminine essence into how we engage in the world too. So we don't have to start from there, but since this was one topic coming up, I just would like to use that as another invitation to maybe dig a little bit deeper in terms of
Yeah.
after 10 years,
Yeah.
what's changed in our lives?
Mm. What a big question. And at the same time, what a small question, because the world is so big and 10 years in one person's life can feel minuscule. But I appreciate that, like, you creating this conversation, with these broad strokes of like what has changed, and even in the context of like within ourselves, how are the inner feminine or inner masculine, like how they've been evolving and expressing themselves. um I still notice like my body react to the word Harvard Business School. It will be like, "Ooh."
Really? Oh, you needed to change that. That's
Yeah,
one
that,
small
like,
step.
I mean, like, I think when I first started going to HBS, the reaction would be like, oh, like, I am so good. I was just proud of myself, but I think ultimately it's like this deep desire to find an affirmation of my worth. And that affirmation seemed to never be enough, by looking outward. And so, like, there was a whole everybody have a backstory before the point we went to HBS. And like Daruk, you were like a superstar before that. And like there's so many ways in which we have done something really cool, and then we went in there, and then we're still looking for like, oh, like for me at least, like I'm like, how am I where am I gonna go next? Like now that I've gone into this really big, beautiful brand, like it's like, and I think if you ask me what's changed in the last 10 years is more about from looking outward to looking inward, and then out again, but then also in. It's just like, it's not that I got enlightened and I am all in here. It's more like the frequency I look out, and then like learning to be like, oh, no, 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 it's something in. And maybe I'll just bring in like the whole my husband and I had like an argument before we got on this call, and I was like, this is bad timing. But then, you remember what the rooks say, perfect timing, everything.
Timing. Yeah.
And so like I had an argument with my husband. He objectively is not very good at logistics. And so like he messed up something, and it like, oh, angers me, right? And like for the first 5 minutes, I'm like, something's wrong with this guy. I'm like, outward, outward, outward. And then there's a one moment I'm just like, Okay, it's all coming from here. And I think that's the change. Like I was so outward looking when I was in HBS, and looking for affirmation of my worth for what I'm doing. And so like going in there I was just trying to like figure out what else can I do to feel great about myself. And that's how, I mean, in many ways, like that also brought me to the past. So I am deeply grateful for that. I mean, like doing the class, like authentic leadership development, I was drawn to it. I wasn't sure how that adds to my resume, but I
Yeah.
was drawn to it. And then that brought me in touch with the part of myself that I didn't know needed tending for all these years. And it brought me in touch with someone like Daruk and like flourishing in a different way inside. And so I am grateful for that. But at the same time, like the looking outward, 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 like now I'm like, I still look outward maybe for 5 minutes and make my husband wrong. And then go in and be like, okay, all the anger is inside, or like all the insecurity is inside, like all the desire to be affirmed for my worth is coming from inside. And so then the question is like, then the answer is probably inside too.
Inside too. Yeah, such a deep wisdom. And it requires decades of work, hard work, to arrive to that wisdom. And believe me, you are not alone in this.
Mm,
If I ask the same question to myself, probably
yeah.
I wouldn't answer it in a different way. Thank you.
Mm,
Although we started the conversation from integrating more of that welcoming and accepting and loving feminine side, ultimately the main flourishing of that personally for me as well is literally integrating that inner wisdom into the mirrors of life more.
mm,
And I think this can resonate with everyone, but especially within the context of Harvard Business School or this prestigious, ambitious schools in the world. We only see this success stories like type A personalities, always doing, 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 and pushing. And it's a part of actually the identity that we created till that time. That's how we actually see our value in the world.
mhm,
And that was just another observation personally for me, like how much of our worth is actually coming from what we do. It has
mhm,
nothing to do with who we are, what we
mhm,
bring our existence. And I
mhm,
think it was such an amazing opportunity to have one reflecting class, like authentic leadership. And what I would love to see more in the world is actually a little bit more balance on that, not only in business schools, in businesses, in the world that we establish new creations in the world. Like, how can we honor more of that integrity that we bring into what we create as human beings,
mhm,
and see this as an opportunity for self growth and development too, so that we are not really only looking externally in the mirrors of relationships or what we achieved successfully externally, but there is always this human dignity, human respect, and love that we carry within ourselves. But I think I also feel like, honestly, it's a developmental step. When you look into Maslow's hierarchy or different psychological frameworks too, like you have to prove things to yourself for you also to feel valued. But that's I think, a little bit challenging path. What I discovered in my journey is really, I've been taking always this mind path, which is always
mhm,
judgmental.
mhm,
It always improves you, but there is no end to self improvement. There is no end to achievement. Like you mentioned, there's just this mountain that you climb to the top. Like 10 years ago, we climbed to the top of particular mountains in our own worlds. You climbed to the top. I did the same in different shape or form. So we ended up HBS. And if
mhm,
you're in the same mindset, if nothing is really shifting in our consciousness, then we will be always chasing the next mountain. Oh, now I have a company, $1 million. What's next? 100 million. Oh, billion. And there is no end to this game. What I discovered in my personal life is really, let's be ambitious. Let's try to honor all of human potential. But also let's remember that that's a journey,
mm,
lifelong journey. And I always share this example of how my definition of the meaning of my name has changed over time. So my
mm.
name in my native culture literally is very meaningful to our conversation. It means top of the mountain, summit. And up
Wow.
until quite recently, like till 10 years ago, I would say, or 5 years ago, That was actually this ambition that I had in me. Like, I'm gonna find the next big mountain and I'm just gonna climb to the top of it. If that
Mm,
means I'm gonna make big sacrifices and I'm just gonna sprint like crazy and push the limits of my own body and spirit, I'm just gonna do it just to prove myself that I can. And I
mm,
still have a lot of energy, and I truly believe that it's a way of honoring life. So definitely, I think we should really bring all of our capacities as human beings to the full existence, whatever that shape or form might be it in the form of business or family or an artistic reflection. But what was lacking was really this peace while I'm climbing to the top of the mountain, like literally slowing down and seeing the flowers, appreciating the flowers, and honoring the seasonal change
mm,
and seeing the changing colors of the season, like appreciating this greenery turning out to be orange soon, and just really integrating that experiences. I was always like running, 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 and then not having enough time to appreciate and honor the success stories, appreciate the people around me, appreciate the connections that I've made along the journey. So
mm,
to me right now, my name not only means climbing the top of the mountain, it's a lifelong process where I can also honor more of the nature around me and spend more time with the flowers and animals and just
yeah.
love life. And
I have a question for you, Doro.
sure, go for it.
When did it start shifting for you that you slow down and notice the flowers and the butterflies?
I think a part of me has always been seeking, similar to you.
Mhm.
I might have had a little bit more reflective personality, I would admit, even in my early 20s when I was living in Istanbul, having this active business life and stuff like that. I was always feeling like I need to slow down and just allow myself to reflect because
Hmm.
I was always acquiring new experiences, business, social life, social life, social life. And something in me was always calling. My first experience really balancing it well was really when I moved to Switzerland. Um, it was around 2010-9, and I spent more than a little bit a year in Switzerland because of the nature of Switzerland, because it's a slow-paced country, like nature. So compared to Istanbul, it enabled me to have this integrative lifestyle. So that was, I think, the first time I realized, oh my God, it depends on how I structure my life. And I started consciously bringing a little bit more integration. When I moved back to Istanbul, I was able to carry that lifestyle back with me. But I think what has intensified it the most in terms of really like truly embodiment, not really like little small pieces, me forcing to bring that reflective side a little bit more. I would say like consciously that embodiment came in almost like 5 years ago. And the
Mm,
primary reason for that was really me reflecting through where I am in life and am I really truly honoring all of my potential. And I
mm,
realized that there's still some healing work that I have to do. And
mm,
for that, I realized instead of really staying in the same mindset, again, like chasing the next big mountain, but with the same mindset, nothing is changing. I said, okay, Doruk, like you just need to slow down. And funny story, I was attending yoga regularly. Yoga has been in my life more than a decade, but I was a regular practitioner every day. And one day in the yoga class that I've been attending every Monday, the name of the instructor was Jai. We were Jai junkies. Like we were literally a community going to his class every week.
was the
And in
Bhakti one, right?
Bhakti Center in New
Yeah,
York.
I've
Yes,
been looking into one of those classes.
yes, one of
Yeah,
my dear
I love
places.
it.
Yeah, but I couldn't take you to Jai's class, did I? Probably not.
I think you did one. There was one. Oh wait, no,
No,
I don't
we've been to I think Gita contemplation, and
Yeah.
then
There was this one time there's a pregnant woman there, and then we all sang for her, and like people were all bawling their eyes out. I was like, what
yes,
kind of yoga
Jai's
is that?
baby. Yes, yes, Shama. Yes.
I've been seeking out Bhakti flow, like, and now I found a Bhakti yoga teacher in
Oh,
Sebastopol where I live now. But I was like, you inspired me. So
God.
that is a I know that was a deep, deep spiritual practice for you.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
in one of Jai's classes, he shared a story saying that if you are called to run this exercise instead of really trying to clean things in your life, why don't you consciously take that time out, slow down, and work on yourself before really opening up to dating, to other things. And I said, like, that's actually a cool idea.
Mm.
Let me just set out like a year consciously to deepen my practice in terms of really integrating more of that deep inner integration and wisdom. And then pandemic came in. Literally, I was supposed to end my inner work journey 15th of March, where we had the declaration of the pandemic in New
Wow.
York. So that internal journey deepened and deepened, deepened. And I'm talking about the pandemic timelines, which is, I think, quite important. Not only personally for me, based on what I've seen in the world, it's also changing the way that we process things. That pandemic time journey, like lockdown for a couple of months, I still remember I was having this little small tree behind behind the camera and screen, and till that time I've been living in the same place like almost 5 years. But because of the lifestyle in New York, you're always like in and out business trips and social life. You never have time just to sit there, look outside of your window for 30 minutes. And that 2 months where we had this intense lockdowns, and that was literally changing season timelines from March, end of May or June. I was able to see a tree literally flowering in front of my eyes, like every day. And that was my first time literally interacting with nature, like every day, literally seeing it blossoming and blooming in front of my eyes. That period really also created a deep impact in me in terms of really honoring the life around me. And I was just so busy that I was so like this in my own life that I didn't really open up enough space to see this. That was such a phenomenal eye opener. And I think that is one of the biggest right now wisdom that I carry in me. It's not only me chasing my vision, it's also me consciously opening up space for life, for universe, for my community to co-create with me. And it has its own timing and it has its own seasons too. But for that to reveal itself, we just need to hold the space, share the right intentions, and literally nurture those intentions like a mother would do. I know
Mm.
that has been a very long answer, and I know that you have been a mother too. So I am eager to hear your
Mhm.
reflections about what has changed in your life and how are you integrating more of that feminine wisdom that you mentioned in our last call that you've
Yeah.
been integrating and embodying more in your life?
I think this actually really relates to while you're sharing about slowing down. Like, I was reflecting, like, when do I actually slow down? It's pregnancy. And it's like, pregnancy, most people see it or experience it as like a very physical phenomenon. You know, literally your organs reorganize to make room for this thing that's keep growing until it
Yeah.
comes out. And there's a lot of discomfort, a lot of other things. But it was the first time I got in touch with the feminine side that I didn't know was there, because I think my whole life was about doing.
Yeah.
And you can't do anything in pregnancy. Like, honestly, it's gonna keep going. It's like that was a big thing. I was like, what do I need to do? And it's like, oh wait, no, this human's gonna keep growing. All I can do is just wait. Like, it's actually gestation is waiting. I mean, obviously I'm taking care of my body, but all I could do is just live my life, and then this thing comes out.
Yeah.
It's the most miraculous thing. I mean, actually the labor is a lot of work, but like for 9 months. But I was like, some moments, like I was psychologically freaking out. I was like, what can I do? What am I doing? But then my body would be like, no, 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 slow down. And so, like, I would notice when I'm overdoing, I would feel nauseous. And I'm like, I wonder, and this is not saying everyone's experience, but like when I'm overdoing, if I'm not aligned with like what that day should be, or food that I want to put in my body, like I would feel more nauseous than usual.
Yeah.
And at first, like, my doing was to like perfect the food that I eat, perfect all the supplements, perfect like go
Yeah.
to yoga retreats and like, like make sure my body is
Yeah.
great. But like at some point I was just like, no, like F that. Like, so it's like, oh, I have to always drop in to this like yin space. Like
Yeah.
there's nothing needs to happen on my side and it continues to happen. It's like the yin yang. And I was have to like drop so much of my yang energy. And I was like, what's going on? And so I was at like I remember I was still go, go, go like with my work. I had a tech company. I started out of Harvard Business School and I closed it down about 3-4 years afterwards. And then I became like a consultant for investors in the venture world. And as soon as I got pregnant, I was just like, I can't do it anymore. Like for some reason, I just like slowly wanted to drop off. And then I was just in this space of like a lot of internal space.
Yeah.
And that really slowed me down. And I realized there's nothing to do, which is really scary because what I do or what I did has always defined me.
Yes.
So when I stopped doing, what defines me anymore? And I was just like, I don't know. It's not the supplements I take, it's not the acupuncture I go to. Um and it was a process. Like, and then you mentioned pandemic, which I think has such a signature in most of our lives in different ways. Like it was March 2020 lockdown, and then mid-May, my daughter was born, and I was in labor, during the like all those fears of what's going on in the world, and like I think a part of me just worried that what world am I creating or am I leading my daughter into? There's a lot of fear, a lot of fear, and a lot of fear around death, around not being able to handle it all. But motherhood slowed me down even more.
Yeah.
Because now your child is looking at the world where there's no time. Like there is literally no time for them. And so like they're just gonna stare at something for an eternity. And you'll be like, and you
Magical.
oh like you'll
How
be like,
can
oh,
you do
come on,
that?
it's Fiverr.
And what do we do to you guys that
Yeah.
changes
And my
everything
daughter
when you
is
grow up?
Yeah, and my daughter's 3 now, and she has a little bit of sense of time now. She'll be like, "Mama, I'm gonna go to school in 56 minutes." I'll be like, "You don't know what that means." Or like, "Mama, I'll start driving the car when I'm 4." I'm like, "Okay." Like they still don't have a concept of time. And so when you are like with a being who's internally present, you got to just slow down. And I think that really brings in that feminine side of like, you know, it's all about do it, do it, do it faster, 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 achieve, 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 to like, wow, I had a great day. I walked around the block with my daughter and it took 2 hours because there are
Beautiful.
just so many wildflowers and redwood seeds that we need to pick up and make a whole story about it.
Yeah.
And then like, and then run into a neighbor with a dog and we're like, it's just like that was life. And I'm like, I've never lived life like that. Never.
Isn't it more meaningful? Honestly, that was another realization I had. Although on paper I had maybe success stories out of doing, because I didn't really appreciate the time of slowing down and honoring what I already achieved.
Mhm.
It never felt meaningful personally for me. Like whenever
Mm,
I just started taking things slower
yeah.
and just fully embodying that moment, bringing all of my presence, not only my monkey mind, but my body, my awareness, attention, and everything, I can fully experience that. And the joy of that is very
Mm,
different. It's more
mm,
peaceful, warm. And personally, I've been really reflecting a lot in terms of what is preventing us to integrate this back to business too, because now that being experienced in two worlds, and as someone who is always passionate about really bringing this human potential to the fullest extent in the world, and as business people hopefully enabling others to do this in the context of business. So instead of us optimizing our potential, we can co-create more beautiful things, even more meaningful things in life. I've been obsessed about, why are we not using this powerful feminine energy and aspect in
Mhm.
terms of integrating back to how we innovate? Because I feel like we are also innovating in this only doing manner, like fast, quick and dirty, break things and we can fix it later. Let's not worry about the social implications in terms of what this means for society or the nature. Like, who cares? And
Right.
I'm quite hopeful that I'm also seeing quite a lot of changes where we can see more of that integration of that feminine side. But it's,
Mhm.
to me, it's not only diversity for the sake of diversity, it's also diversity for the sake of honoring our whole potential as human beings and what we can do on this earth too. Because I think once we can really ignite that heart power, ignite that presence, that really guides our minds with its pull power, and we can bring more unique and original, authentic things into the world. And that is actually where I think my heart is in terms of what has changed. I was
Mm.
mostly in the mind space and always this competitive mindset, always feeling like I need to do more. There's always this time pressure. Right now, yes, I'm still doing things and I still aspire to be a part of great ecosystems, but I'm also thinking a lot more longer term. If it really means that this is going to take a decade, and maybe it's not going to happen in my own timing in 6 months, maybe it's going to take a couple more years. And
Mhm.
maybe it's not going to be only me doing this. Maybe it's going to be me and Elsa and Joe and Jane and everyone else, like literally holding the space. And maybe literally instead of us pushing for things, it's going to be us humbling ourselves, bringing ourselves back to the presence and letting that presence to co-create with us through.
Mhm. Mhm.
Maybe
I,
just this conversation is a simple example of that, but why don't we replicate the same in the business too?
yeah, I'm really curious, what is your experience of integrating that in business? Because I it feels like there's a lot of truth there, and yet um we don't live in a society that it has that narrative, right? Like that narrative of being in touch with your feelings and being intuitive, and you know, not like tracking progress every 5 minutes, like, because all like real time progress and like what's the next thing, milestone, KPIs, it's like, and I can speak a little bit about what my experience is creating this family with my husband, like finding that. Um, right now we run a business together, and um, kind of like a little small family business selling baby products, and then now that already is three, like both of us are planning to like start our own companies, like go back into entrepreneurship again soon, and but it will be different, right? And I was just thinking about, and I want to hear your answer in a moment. Like for me, it's like I feel like there's a lot of headspace like dedicated in business, like analyzing, and
Yeah.
recently we were trying to buy a car. It's kind of a mundane example, but everybody goes through it at some point if you don't live in cities, and like we were just going into like analytical mode,
Yeah.
like there's like spreadsheets and rows of
Spreadsheets, yeah.
all the factors and ratings and price, and like we know we
Yeah.
have our own rating like system, and all these different make-year models, and like all the reviews, and it was like we would dive in that space, and like I felt the masculine just coming. It was like blah, 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 blah. And there's nothing wrong, like we need that, right? We
Yep.
need that for like for part of the world to like, yeah, this is what it is, like you have to understand things,
Yep.
um and I deeply appreciate that, but like it was lacking like the feminine of like intuiting, and like what's like, it's so nebulous, right? And so
Yep.
we like got to this one year make model of buying a used car, and we are like, this is the best one, like of all this analysis, right? And then we like found, oh, there's a dealership selling exactly that for good prices. Driving there, we went in there, it was like bam bam bam, it was like, get this done today. And then the salesman was like, he's like, yeah, this is great, let me just go do something else, I'll come right back. And at that moment, my husband was like, oh yeah, actually just come back when, and he said, let me and my wife talk about this, like because
Yeah.
he was stepping away.
Yeah.
And Toby was like, he kind of stepped into his mask and he's like, okay, Elsa, forget the sales guy.
Yeah.
Forget the spreadsheet.
How do you feel?
How do you feel? Like, just like this container. Like,
Yeah.
how do you feel? Like, and all of a sudden I felt safe to like tune into my intuition. And he's like very clear. He's like, sometimes he would say, like, this is, you know, I'm not saying this is true for everyone, but I think sometimes people in a role of more of a feminine role in a relationship, like sometimes for me, like I feel more intuitive in certain things.
Yes.
And he was like, you got your intuition, like woman, just tell me like what is there. And I got it. And so like I tuned in for a second. I was like, I hate that car.
Yeah.
I hated the moment I walked, like I sat in the driver's seat, I touched the wheel, like, not that car. But like my mind was just like, but it has the best metrics.
Yeah.
And so he was like, Elsa, if your feeling is guiding you and say, this is not the car,
Yeah.
why would you buy it and drive it every day against your feeling? Would you enjoy it? The rest, I mean, not the rest of it, but like for every day, like this is going to be in your life. And I was like, oh, wow, my feeling is saying no. And I don't know why. And he was like, I don't care why. I think, and he kind of got in touch with intuition after I said it. And he was like, no, not this. And so we ended up not buying that car, but it felt right. And I feel like I probably have made a lot of decisions in my life where it was like the analysis says yes, but the feelings say no. And then I go with the analysis and I'm just always out of alignment with myself.
Yes.
And that feels like what is off balance these days. So that was my experience. And I don't know exactly like what everyone else is like experience it, but I'm curious how it is for you, because when you speak about it, I'm like, yes, like bring that in, because like it's needed.
Yeah. No one has a magical answer.
Right. Well, she's having an answer also is very masculine. So
Yeah, I don't have the magical answer too, but the reason that I am initiating these conversations and I'm initiating the change that I'm going through in my personal life in terms of what I'm dedicating my life is exactly exploration in terms of what is emerging. All I know is something is dying in terms of how we did business, how we approach world, how we approach ourselves, how we valued ourselves. Coming back to our starting conversation, it was always as if something here doesn't exist. It's always external, because it's always external. It's always based on competition. It's always aggressive timelines and pressures and stuff like that. And yes, I honor that dimension of bringing things to the material world through doing, through pushing things, through practical manners, goals and ambitions. There's value in that. But if it's really mindless, if it's meaningless, if it's not really taking a step and asking the big questions about why are we doing this in the first place, and honoring us as creators too, us as the community, as the co-creators of this future, it's meaningless. And I sometimes feel like we are always in this how process, just optimize efficiency, then no one's really taking time to say, okay, like what started this in the first place? Like this was because we are talking about business, and I will be bringing back to my future aspirations, but I recently found an article by Charles Hamdy, who used to be a corporate leader working for Shell at the time. And he switched his career from corporate world to being a professor and being an intellectual philosopher. There are so many things about him. He wrote the most important business article, according to me. What does a business stand for? Like, why do we do even business? And honestly, we have been to business school. We have been in business more than a couple decades. Did you ever ask yourself this question? Or did we ever had a business education about, okay, guys, you came in here. Let's talk about what is the purpose for business? And this was one of the deepest conversations. He was talking about this profit thing. Like, as human beings, yes, you have to eat. As a business, you have to have profit so that you have sustainable future, a continuity. But his example was perfect. He was saying that if you only eat as a part of your living, like this is gross. Like you just like eat, 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 eat. Like you have to eat to be alive so that you do something meaningful with your life. Same with business. So we have to have profits so that we can have a sustainable business, so that we can create more of the initial why that made the business exist in the first place. And to me, that is more of that why dimension and slowing down integration and meaning and purpose dimension that has been missing practically in the world. And again, I would like to assume all the good intentions. We just didn't have time to focus on it because we are so busy doing analysis. Let's do analysis, but let's also make sure that we are chasing the right things, doing the things in the right way. And I think in the corporate world, it's not that easy to be a part of this change. Like I've been always a part of large international organizations, always trying to establish new solutions or always transforming old business units into new digital formations. So I always liked transforming old by honoring the good parts of the old and bringing the new parts of the new. But I think what's missing was really, again, alignment in terms of the expectations from a business standpoint, from the current corporate world and how it's operating. So I felt this invitation to, instead of trying to fix the old, get out, open more space, and be a part of the new ecosystems, trying to create this new future in alignment with more of the values that we've been talking about. So it's not about dishonoring that practical side, but honoring the practical side while also integrating this meaning side, more of this feminine dimension, or more of the so-called softer, but to me it's more important dimensions into the business world too. And there are quite a lot of things happening. So we have this sustainability movements. I think we have quite a lot of social impact funds. We have quite a lot of like-minded individuals and entrepreneurs trying to be a part of this ecosystem. There are actually quite a lot of tools enabling us to do this too. Like it has been a couple of weeks, I've been part of ULab, which is a part of Presensing Institute. This is a theory based on action science from MIT. They've been perfecting their models over the last 20 years too. What it gives us really, how can we change our awareness? Because for any kind of change to happen in a sustainable manner, you have to change the consciousness of the people. And that requires a different kind of operating system. And there are some frameworks for change makers to speak the same language too. For me, it's like we have been always operating in a limited mindset, like from an only mind. And to Einstein's point, you can't solve all the problems that we see in the world if you operate from the same mind. So we have to elevate our consciousness, take it to a different level, see it from a heart space, so that we can see more holistic feature opportunities and co-creatively create generative ecosystems that we can collectively sense is the right direction. So what this framework was really suggesting is really individually us elevating our consciousness and doing this in a co-creative process with the like-minded group of change makers so that we listen to each other, we feel. And this process was highlighting what you already experience in your personal space. Like we all know, to me, we all have this internal sensors in our hearts. That is the unity power. Like if you feel it in your heart, if we can truly authentically hold the space, our hearts feel something. And this institute, Presensing Institute, is really collectively us feeling that feature and creating from that feature back to the presence. And that is actually true leadership in its definition, because you can really sense the feature, see the feature, and create the right space for it to happen. But I think we need more in today's world is really creating those spaces in whatever is aligned with our interests or capabilities, be it in the business, be it in the family, be it in your own community. How can you create that authentic space, co-creative space, where we can all bring our beautiful, authentic powers as individuals with different backgrounds, with different beautiful gifts that we can give back to the world, but ignite our heart power collectively so that we all see and sense that warm feature that we know is feasible. And to me, that is the perfect integration of that meaning dimension, heart dimension. So we have a purpose, we have a meaning, we have a collective heart in something that really ignites our mind so that we could be efficient and we can break down things. But again, it doesn't need to be rigid like we do in the business today. Like, is it like, oh, I have 5-year plan? No, it's really like creating an experiment, going for it from a practical manner, but integrating back. Like, how do we feel? Is this aligned with where we would like to go? And again, creating those spaces like action, space for reflection, action, space for reflection. And with that, I think if we can find the right communities that are trying to bring the same intention to the world, and if we can co-experiment together, I believe that we will be creating a future that's more aligned with who we truly are as human beings and who we truly are as residents of Earth.
Wow, what a beautiful answer. So I think when you said the word space, that really resonates with me. Because that was what pregnancy was. All I did was like space without any rent. They just stay there for 9 months without. But like, well, at some point they will pay rent if they don't come out. But like, literally, like it's just space. But that space is like feminine. It's safe. It's like creative. There's nothing required of you, which is really interesting because the business part of me would be like, well, what is a business? Is it an enterprise that is trying to make money? Like if profit is driving the activity of this group of people doing something. And so how do you put the two together in a sense like, oh, let's take a few days and create a space to like reflect, and then you come back out and then say, is the objective still about profit maximization? Like would businesses all have different objectives? Like if we all kind of just bring our heads to serve our mind, bring our mind to serve our hearts, like what would that look like? And I'm curious, like, what does that look like? Because I can see someone asking the question like, okay, more space, but what does it mean for, the business objective?
Yeah. But to me, that's actually reversing the magic. Again, it's really self-centric mind, not trusting life and trying to plan and control and asking, let me see without seeing, I'm not going to jump in. The other spectrum, which is a spectrum that I'm inviting and I'm experimenting, and I'm just humbly accepting that I don't know the answers. Like, this is the first example. Like, I don't know where this is going to go. When I started my journey with my other co-creator, Ethan, like, he just reached out to me because I shared an intention. It's, again, heart alignment. There wasn't heart alignment there. We just started experimenting. It's evolving. It has been more than a couple months, and it's evolving and changing its form. But no one's asking, like, where's this going? Like, what are the key metrics? And like, it's just like we are playing, we are enjoying, we are creating a space and enabling that space to give us experiments to reveal itself. And we are just space holders for that magic to happen instead of me planning rigidly and giving some goals and definitions for success. I'm just humbling myself and enabling the core intention in my heart to mature in its own timing. And I'm just an executor and player of that space, honoring that energy. Like, I'm having fun with you, you're having fun with me. We're just learning and growing as individuals, which is in of itself a value personally for me. And we're just doing it together, opening it up broadly. And no one knows what this is gonna unlock. Maybe it's gonna inspire someone else. Someone else is gonna reach out to us. Maybe down the road in 2 months, this is gonna open up a different opportunity that we couldn't even plan with our minds today. To me, it's the wrong question. It's, again, how can you maybe release control a little bit, trust life, trust the process, and make only dedication to bringing all of yourself into whatever you do so that you are fully present, so that you are not missing any opportunities that might be present and that you couldn't plan in your mind. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think what you're saying is like just trusting which is can be so hard to do. Like
I
I would just
know.
think back to my experience of like
I
starting my
know.
company, or like when I was in management consulting. Like if somebody, I mean, that was like more than 10 years ago. Like if somebody say, well, let's just trust our intuition
That's
and
what
like
you're right.
take space to listen to our employees about what they have to say. Like if it's really fun. I mean, back then, now I think maybe it's a lot better, but like just imagine, like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I wonder if more listening and more trusting
Yes.
has been in the center of business. Like when we have those crises that we experience, like all those, just felt like a lot of uncontrollable parts of ego clashing together. And
Yep.
yeah, and trusting. How do you trust? How do you trust these days? I mean, I know how is also a masculine question, but like what has happened in your life that has created this
Oh.
path of trusting for you?
First of all, I think it's a lifelong journey. It's one of the hardest things that I can say I am doing a little bit better in life. So, to me, coming back to our conversations, it is to me at the highest scale. Like, how can you fully surrender, go beyond your ego, and trust that you can create more beautiful things with life? It has always been a personal dedication to really some daily practices myself, including yoga and some other mystical practice, and just literally spending time in nature is the biggest teacher personally for me, just to know that there's always change there, always, but it's in perfect balance in different shape or form. And if you pay attention, you can feel that innate harmony that is always there. And as human beings, I think sometimes we fell out of that innate love and peace and trust. Then we bring our expectations, and it's again like me as Doruk having some plans, expectations, goals, and ambitions to prove myself something, my value, X, Y, and Z. Like when that personal monkey mind with expectations and aspirations come in, that's the only time that I'm actually disconnected from that energy, which is always there. To me, it's when I had that realization, like, oh, it's always there. I'm in the ocean. I just
Mhm.
don't know that I'm in the ocean. Sometimes when I'm just in my monkey mind with my aspirations and ambitions, like I just pull myself out of that system, and it's like, oh my god, like stress and tension. And whenever I feel closure, that restriction, my
Mm.
biggest trick is literally to get out of myself, throwing myself out to nature. Whatever, that part of the practice is very personal. But I
Mm.
think finding something that really takes you out of your own system is a first step to literally remind yourself that you are a part of a bigger system. And regardless of what is happening in you, that turbulent thing, it's okay. And there's been also lots of personal healing practices in terms of literally digging deeper in terms of what is that turbulence? Because what is blocking that trust is usually your personal stories. Like, what is the limiting belief that's
Mm.
really triggering that unease in me? Is that true? How can I rewire that? Or acknowledging that I'm going through an emotional burst and
Mm.
knowing that it's okay, instead of really freaking out like we always do in business and try to even create more control and more restriction
Right.
and
More
more
control.
problem. It's like, okay, like in the brave manner that you've done prior to our conversation, like, here I see you, anger. I'm a human being too, and it happened. Okay, let me take the first 10
Mm.
minutes. Doruk, I'm just going to be late. Sorry, let's take 5 more minutes for processing this too. But here I am. I am back to business. So acknowledging that also we are also human beings, and
Mm.
understanding those triggers and accepting those triggers instead of really pushing them are top of the mind, a couple of things. But again, continuous practice. Always bring back that inner trust, inner acceptance.
Mhm.
What works personally for me is really integrating these practices as a daily commitment, especially earlier in the morning, so that whenever something is happening in life, similar to what you shared, and everything can happen, and everything, every day I have 10 different kinds of crises happening in my life too, but it helps me to bring back that balance. Like, let me just take a deep breath, just open the window, listen to the birds, take myself out of that monkey mind's craziness. And then when I open that space, to me, the critical thing is really when I lose that trust and I'm in fear, I'm in control mode, the moment that I realize it, I do a trick to open myself out. Like I said, breathing, throwing myself in nature. And when I feel open once again, that is the time I do a little bit more digging deeper. Like, where is this coming from? How can I really go to the root cause of this and try not to repeat the same thing in my life? So I'm not also saying like lovey-dovey, let's not solve any problems, but let's open space with acceptance first. And from there, we can put that analytical mind saying that, okay, what was causing that trigger? Where is that anger coming from? And then hopefully rewiring some of the belief systems that can help us to be different next time. Conscious practice.
Yeah. Wow.
What
It
would you
resonates-
say?
Yeah,
It's a
it
good question.
resonates so many things. Thank you for answering that question first. What I hear and really landed for me, like kind of to extrapolate what you said, it's like recognizing the human part that we play,
Yes.
and then there's a non-human, godly, whatever we call this source intelligence part,
Yeah.
that we have zero idea.
Yep.
Like just like knowing that we don't know what's really going on.
That's
Objectively.
beauty. Like life
We
is
know
so boring if you know everything.
They really don't know. And like you said, it'll be like something you do that you follow intuition, which is listening to the, to the flow, the great divine, whatever. And then 3 years later, it comes back, we're like, whoa, that has that impact. Like, and our mind could never have orchestrated something like that. Like, in a way, like our minds are just like Legos. Like,
Yes.
yeah, it's pretty simplistic in a way. I mean, Lego can get very sophisticated, but like we're talking about the whole universe.
Yeah.
And it's just there's so much more complexity to it, and just acknowledging the human part that we play. Yeah. And then just be like, okay, whatever, like my mind's trying to control more, thinking that like that's all there is. And yeah, I mean, I don't know, what is the point in life really? Like, can we control it? Can we like have objectives and measure?
Yeah.
It's like, no.
Isn't it beautiful not to know?
Yeah.
Yeah. You see, like
There's a
10
beauty
years
to it.
ago, did you have any idea that we might be having this conversation? I
Oh,
couldn't.
no idea. I was probably like dreaming about being on like the cover of Forbes or something. I
Forbes.
mean, we all did. Well, actually, on that note, 10 years ago, I need to bring up a beautiful picture.
Oh.
So just some context. This is Daruk 10 years ago. She was in the same class with me, and she wrote, oh, it's not very clear, but
Oh,
I will read it out for you. Can I?
of course, and I will
That was
replicate
10
the
years
same, and that
ago.
could
Oh,
be a
yeah.
nice closure for this one.
So I actually deliberately didn't look up mine to see what I wrote. So I want to like real time
Yeah.
reflect on it. But I'll read the Rogues, which is it. She said, I would like to empower myself and others by helping us, one, understand ourselves, two, design our lives better, parenthesis, probably by using technology.
Wow. Nothing has changed. Intention is the same. And all I can say is really, I think I have better alignment. So when I started exploring this like 10 years ago, I think my entry point at that time as a venue for understanding ourselves, because I was so much in my mind that analytical and categorizing things. I said, personality is a great tool. Instead of companies surveying us whether we are a good fit for a job, why don't we use it for empowering individuals? So I remember experimenting quite a lot of things around personality as a part of understanding ourselves. But at this stage, I think 10 years later, my understanding of understanding ourselves is very different. So it's not only this analytical framing coming with personality,
how do you analyze a person, right?
of that, but still, I think the intention is the same. I think I can only say that I have better integration and alignment in terms of bringing more of myself and experimenting with different modalities to really understand ourselves better. But thank you for reminding me that. Can I replicate the same?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is Elsa. Not much has changed, actually. Well done.
Not a for both of us.
Yeah. So her mission was to give a voice to those who don't have one, give opportunities to those who were born with none. Such a poetic mission.
Oh, Elsa. Elsa from 10 years ago. Wow.
Deep.
Yeah, I at Harvard I also did a joint degree at the Kennedy School of Government. So it's like I feel like there's this part of me that is like very drawn to social justice and like wanting to make change happen through public policy.
Yeah.
And that statement is like very tied to that side of me. But at the same time, I was curious how business can be a vehicle of change.
Yes.
And so like when I listen to the statement now, I actually hear there's pain in there. Like there's the pain of me watching or witnessing that there are people in the world who don't seem to be heard or don't seem to have opportunities. And I was in this one of the most privileged places in the world. And there's this contrast I notice, like, oh, we're in this fancy place and I feel sadness that this is not 99% of the world. And it feels like this is the first thing that comes up in the most feminine way to like be in touch with that statement. And I think what has changed and how I relate to it. I think back then when I was in touch with that pain of seeing what the rest of the world looked like to me, or the contrast, my masculine is like, fix it. Fix it. And so like that statement was more like fix what's wrong in the world. Right now when I look at it, I'm like, I would like that to change. Yes, I would like all of humanity to feel heard, to feel empowered. Like having opportunities is a form of being empowered. But is that my job to fix it?
Wow. This might be an invitation for a different conversation, which is very deep and dear to my heart too. Like, how are we approaching really our businesses and this innovation? Like, we always start, what's the problem? And we are going to fix this problem. It's a very different mindset if we approach it from the other angle that we've been talking about. So I would love to maybe dig deeper on that if that's still aligned with you too.
Yeah, I'm curious. That's a really good question. Do you have any first thoughts about it? I want to hear.
Just to honor attention and head and heart space for our followers, I can go deep for ours, but I'm also eager to hear more about the time off that you have taken to honor your motherhood and the dedication that you spend for growing your family, which is to me is another very big important aspect that we are not paying attention too much as humanity. We always dignify this businesswoman, like Forbes leader, CEO, but we don't really dignify mothers too much, spending the first few years out of their lives dedicating that commitment to their children, especially from a business mindset. And if you're coming from a business background, we always actually say that, oh, she sacrificed her time or value or this. But to me, it's totally other thing. Like for the future, for healing our world and healing our humanity, the first 7 years is so precious. And that's what's going to shape the future of the children, the generations that are bringing more of life to our world. And what could be more dignified and honorable other than, if you have the means to do so, allowing that time to be with your loved ones, to be with your family. And I would like to really hear your voice about that, because that's something so dear to my heart, although I'm not a mother yet. If I have to make a choice between raising my child versus a company, like if life allows me, I would always honor in the same way to raise my own family. And I wouldn't really feel like I'm sacrificing my business intelligence if I'm really opening up space for that. And I would like to discuss that in more detail if that's
Thank you
also aligns with
yeah.
your
Thank you
intent.
for the invitation. I actually think it is connected to what I said. Like the way I respond, my hear my own voice responding to the mission statement, like that self, that former self wanting to fix the wrongs of the world,
Yes.
and how I think I could do it, and then asking like, am I the one to fix it? I think motherhood informed me a lot, like to even ask those questions, to be like, really? And I, I started doing a lot more like self-development work before I had my daughter. And the first time I did this, like this big workshop, like there's this exercise of like, everybody reach back to a moment in your life before you were 7, literally before you were 7, and search for the moment this happened, and therefore this pattern has existed for the last, I don't know, 40, 50, 60 years of your life. And everybody had one of those moments. Everybody could just think of it. We knew. And then we just like, and I was just like, wow, does it mean that all those personalities I've been dealing with at work and business all came from a moment before they were 7? Like, it's because the pattern wasn't serving us. I have my pattern of being insecure and doing all these things to like, da, 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 but it was all because little Elsa felt like if she did this and this and this, her parents will finally love her.
Yeah.
And that was my whole life, just trying to get that unanswerable question. Oh, does daddy love me? And I did all these things to like elaborate things to prove it. And I'm like, wait a minute, everybody has that.
Yeah.
And so like when Aurelia was born, I was like seeing how I can shape her. Like it's clay.
Yeah.
It's the biggest privilege anybody can have, in my experience. You are shaping a human being. There's nature and nurture. There are other
Yeah,
things
of
that we
course.
cannot change.
Of course.
But then the nurture part is big, and we show her we don't usually watch TV, but we show her the James a documentary about the James Webb telescope, which saw lights that might come from the beginning of time after the Big Bang. And she saw the picture of it. She couldn't forget. She would ask me, Mama, can you show me that picture again? I need to see when the stars are dying, the supernova. And like she would have dreams last night about like, I went to the moon and I walked into the moon and opened a door and there's stars and supernova. And like you can just see whatever you show them, that's where the imagination like start to like take its form. And now she's like relating to the world in such bigger way, not just in the house. And I'm just like, I was just always amazed by like what we are doing in our lives with our children have such an impact. And this one time I got really mad. My mom was visiting a few months ago, and I got really mad because my mom, she doesn't like to cook. And this one time I was expecting her to make lunch and she did not. And I got really mad. I was like, you didn't take care of me. Like, everybody wants
Your child in you.
like my child came up. And then I was like really annoyed and already I was like, Mama, are you angry? I'm like, yep. And she asked me, why are you angry? And I said, because I wanted my mom to make me lunch and she didn't. And I got really mad. And she said, okay.
That's so
You know
cool.
what? And she said, Mama, next time you can say, Mama, make me lunch. Just like she was telling me to scream. I mean,
Such
that's
a
how she
wisdom.
but she's like, next time just ask her. Like
Yeah.
that's what she said to me. And I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like what my child just showed me
Yeah.
how to create a new pattern, which is stop expecting your mom, just like go and ask her, because my mom would never say no. She just didn't know I was expecting something, and that expectation has like years of resentment about like you didn't do this, and my daughter was just like, Mom, just ask her. And I'm like, what? You can solve like wars will not happen if you have children running the world in this way. Like that's why I think so. Your question of like, yeah, what I mean, in a way, how egotistic of me to think I can fix the world probably by myself. So not that, but also like, wow, like I am raising a human being who maybe we messed up in some ways, but like maybe less messed up, who will, who with other human beings are being raised right now can see the world differently and bring in the world that's more beautiful.
Yes.
And what a beautiful job I get to do. And so I'm like, wow, am I true to my mission statement? Maybe in a way I am. Like I am working on myself, and by that, I'm offering the gift for my daughter to grow up freely, like to have freedom in being who she is.
Yeah.
And I know I'm not perfect and I make mistakes and da da da. And then there is to come back and come back and come back. Yeah. And make repair if I messed up. Yeah. But then you show, a small human being how to make repair, how to be honest, how to own up to your mistakes. Like, so everything I do, even when I mess up, is a lesson in itself for the ones that we try to guide. And so in a way I am living that statement in so many ways, because that, like, the healing that brings to myself first of all, because we live in a society where children first, not mothers. And so, like, first of all, for myself is deeply healing. And so if I can create a space where I feel seen and heard, then there's a trusting part of, like, it will ripple out so that we don't have to, like, build, like my mission statement, oh, I want everyone's voices to be heard. It's like, well, if we all can create safety within ourselves to be heard and seen, if we raise children who inherently feel loved, do we have to create all these tools to, like, make people feel good about themselves or feel seen or heard? Or is it just that we all can just reach within for this great source that's always been there?
Couldn't have said it better. Thank you. So many reflections from my side, but I think you grabbed the main intention and the main aspiration. Like, we are all trying to unlearn, because we were born to a society that is very unhealthy in different shape or form. And I also feel like there are actually, especially in the Western world, so much modalities about us literally blaming our parents as if they had known any better. So to me, it's also like your life, including your relationship with your parents, as a pattern recognition system, but instead of really blaming them, like, take also some responsibility in terms of seeing their pain too, because your grandparents didn't know any better. Like, they probably did their best with their own level of consciousness to raise you. And when I look into the world, given the state of consciousness that we are in, we are trying to unlearn and hopefully build healthier systems. But what if, while we are doing that, which is our conscious work as citizens of this world, why not to dedicate our lives, similar to what we do with the business, for creating a healthier ecosystem for children to be raised in a better world? And my personal observation that I've seen, not only in my culture, in states, in most of the cultures in the world, historically, men were the ones trying to gain the safety and security for the home. So we didn't really have too much connection with our fathers. So safety doesn't only come from money. Safety also comes from, coming back to our conversation, it's your connection. The most important thing that you need from your father is the love. And as a child, that person is out trying to conquer the world in their own shape or form, be it altruistic or personal reasons. But then you are craving this thing. And then that creates type A personalities that end up in their own mountains and maybe at Harvard Business School. But anyway, that's a different kind of story. To me, like, another way of balancing this is not also what we see in today's world about empowering the woman and throwing out all the women to the business world. If it feels right, again, I'm not making a judgmental point of views here, but just sharing another observation. Maybe the healthier way is really bringing both of them back to be present fathers and mothers, especially in this important formative years, and honoring the people who are able to do that. Because I feel like my observation is really, we're not really giving enough respect for the families that are trying to prioritize the way that they are spending their times in the earlier formative years. And I think business might even play a role in this, like, instead of really creating more separation from family and business, how can we enable parents to be more with their children in the formative years? Like, I was delighted to see more work from home, because that's really enabled fathers mothers to be more present with their children. Yeah, it's not to the detriment of the business. It's really humanizing business and healing our world while we are still adding value in the form of business. We are more present with our children. And to me, it's a dual impact. You are creating value through what you do in the business context, but also you're more present. So your child is healthier and you have more opportunities to have a healthier relationship. So instead of us trying to fix broken generations through different therapeutic modalities for healing, and us trying to fix all the broken systems in business because we are broken, we create broken systems. Why not to invest into nurturing of the future generations in the earlier years? And what can we do to enable parents to be more present is a different way of framing the challenge that we face in the world. And I would like to really respect and honor all the dedication and work that you've done and how it's actually linked to maybe the core of your mission. Living it and being your best as a mother as a part of this process too. And maybe one thing that before I forget, this came in this conversation too, but I remember the same topic coming back in our previous conversations. You becoming a mother was not only you taking on this responsibility for bringing up the future generation. It was also such an important part of your own healing process because through your engagement with your own daughter, you were able to see so many different patterns that were lying dormant in you and impacting how you operate as a human being, as a leader in the business, as an entrepreneur, shaping future cultures too. So my observation was also you opening up the space, this motherhood space, was also a tremendous opportunity to heal yourself, heal your patterns, so that now when you are building the next big venture, you will be so healthier and you will approach it not in this, I'm going to do this Forbes thing in the next few years and climb the mountain mentality. It's going to be more integrative, more humble, more holistic in nature, more authentic in nature, and hopefully bring more of yourself. And you will be surrounded with more strength, but a different form.
Thank you for opening the energy field for my next creation.
Why not? I already feel it there.
So resonant. Yeah. And I think I have so much hope that this is a path that a lot of people are going through. And I can see that being for you. And I couldn't have imagined 10 years ago, this is the conversation we're having. And so I have so much hope. I have a lot of hope. 5 years, 10 years is not a super long time.
Yeah.
There's, in the scale of time. So yeah, my prayer is that like we continue to nurture and trust in this human evolution of consciousness.
Yes.
And bringing more love in, and more beauty.
Yeah. Thank you, Elsa. Wow, this was such a beautiful flow. I was not so sure whether it's too long, but it turned out to be a long flow. So
yeah, I'll send
to find some value.
Yeah, I don't. You could like do a part 1, part 2, whatever. I'll send you the recording and you just edit it however you like.
No, I think whoever is listening, if you are still here, thank you. I really honor whatever is emerging from the moment in its all integrity and authenticity. And this was so delightful, so heart-opening personally for me. So thank you for being you, first of all, being in my life for a decade and taking this journey with me. It's such a pleasure to see how we are unfolding different layers and how we are beautifying our lives in different shape or form. But it's always beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you, Dora, for asking me to be your friend 10 years ago in my car.
Thank you.